Hello everyone and welcome to today's Wild Rift video. This video is all going to be about your settings. I'm going to be talking about your graphical settings, how to get the most FPS possible, and I'm also going to be talking about all the gameplay settings. There might be a few settings that are maybe confusing, and also there are some new settings that got added to Wild Rift in the recent 6.0 update. So we're going to be talking about all of that and what are the best settings possible for you to climb in your ranked games. And of course, if you enjoy the content on this channel and if you enjoy Wild Rift content, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And let's head into the settings. So first we're going to talk about the in-game settings, and I'll go into a little bit about my graphical settings, which we'll skip a little bit later on in the video. First up, we have the in-game graphics. You have the different styles that you can pick from classic, which just looks like a normal Wild Rift map. You have vibrant, which brings out a lot more of the color. And then you have muted, which is more to do with your brightness and trying to get as much vision as possible. Vibrant is not too bad as long as it doesn't hurt your eyes. This could be really, really good, especially as I mentioned, things to do with color. When you're playing against enemy champions, you can see them a lot clearer. Muted is just more to do with brightness and less color in general. But I just like classic. I don't think there's anything really wrong with classic. You get that difference between the field of view vision and darkness, and where you can actually see yourself. You can see as I'm moving up, you can see where I have vision, where I don't have vision, whereas on the muted one, it's very difficult to actually see the difference between the field of view and your vision that you can see yourself. That's why I just like to stay on classic. In-game chat, you have team chat and party chat. If you don't want to talk to your team, if you just want to play by yourself, then you can just pick party chat. This is normally what I go for. This is just if you want to talk to your pre-made teammates, or you just don't want to see any of your team's chat at all. In Wild Rift, it's a very quick game, very fast paced. You don't really have a lot of time to type to your teammates. Most of the time you have to listen to pings, which is going to be very important when you're first starting off Wild Rift. All to do with pings, on my way pings, missing pings, attack pings, danger pings. Just listen out for pings. And like I said, you don't really need to type that much, so you can just keep this on party. Frame rate, make sure you keep it on your maximum frame rate. I'll talk a little bit more detail about frame rates and graphic settings a little bit later on, but you can see their frame rate, I got 120. If your phone is capped to 60 or 90, just make sure you have it on the highest FPS possible. Scoreboard, you can actually choose between full screen or half screen. This doesn't actually change too much. Most people do prefer half screen because it doesn't cover as much of the phone as the full screen, for example. Whereas full screen, as you can see, it covers everything. Most of the time, I don't actually look at the scoreboard when I'm in a team fight or anything. I know a lot of people like to fight and tap on this like as they're fighting, as they're moving, which as you can see, if you're using full screen, it's a little bit more difficult. Whereas if you use half screen, you can still see some of your, where you're moving. You still see half of the map. You still can't use any of your skills though. So in general, just make sure you don't use scoreboard when you're in a team fight. Just use it when you're walking back to lane or anything. But this is mainly all personal preference. Character inking shows an outline around character models. This is actually very important, especially when you're trying to aim with your attack button. If you want to try and make sure you aim on the right targets, it's also going to be highlighted with that yellow marker. This little character inking, you can see the little outline there on the characters, which is really, really important to make sure that you're focusing on the right character at the right time, and also shows the difference really between the champions and also the minions in the lane. So character inking, I always have on. Map brightness, I always have higher than FOV brightness. You can see the difference here of FOV brightness. You can still see the difference when I'm walking up the tower here, how much vision I don't and how much I do have. But when you turn the FOV brightness down, you can really see the difference. You really have that darkness feel of your field of vision, so you know how far you can walk up, where I can see enemies and where I can't see enemies. For example, I can't see enemies just around the corner of this wall over there, but I can see just on the tip, and as I walk up, you can see I get more and more vision over time. So I highly recommend to put your map brightness maybe a little bit higher than what I have, because it's very important just in general to get a lot of brightness on your screen so you can see a lot more. But the field of view vision, you'd always want to be lower than your map brightness. Screen shake, I don't know why anyone would really have this on any game, to be fair. Enables screen shaking when casting abilities or when impacted by certain abilities. You don't want this. The screen shaking just distracts you from being able to play the game. If you get hit by certain abilities, that's fine. You still have the time to maybe react or try and survive yourself. If you have this screen shake enabled, then it means it's going to distract you. It might distract you from trying to survive from other abilities and just so many other things. Just unneeded. Don't turn this on. Floating text is all to do with your damage numbers. You can see how much damage you're dealing, whether that's to minions, monsters in the jungle. You can see that little numbers, as you can see there on the enemy champions. That little number will show blue if you deal magic damage, red if you do physical damage, and white if you deal true damage. So it's a really good indication as to how much damage you'll be dealing and also what type of damage you'll be dealing, which can help you a lot in terms of builds and what sort of path you want to go down with your builds. Health bar display name. I always have it on champion. You can have it on none. I know a lot of people have it on none, so you don't actually see too much, and sometimes the names do distract people. I never put it on player because I don't see why I need to see a player's name. I would rather see the champion's name. Maybe they're stuck in between certain champions, or maybe I don't see the champion's model itself because I'm looking at the health bar, and if I quickly look above the health bar, I can see the name of the champion. So if a Darius is running towards me, maybe I don't look at the model quick enough, or maybe they're getting some crazy thing from like Twin God where they're getting huge and they have this huge massive area of effect around them and you can't see the model. I always pick champion just so I can see what champion is running towards me or what champion I'm facing. I don't have to look at the model to see who I'm running into or who I'm running away from. So that's very important. I always have it on champion. Highly recommend to put on champion. Champions outlined at the edge of screen. This basically gives you a team colored champion outline when you're on the edge of the screen. So if you're right on the edge of the screen, you'll be able to see like a red champion icon. You can see there, boom, right there. That little red circle and the little red indicator basically shows you if an enemy is walking close to you or if an ally is close to you. It'll be blue or red depending on which. This doesn't really make a lot of difference in terms of turning it on and off. I always have it on just to make sure I have that color and if there's any red danger around me. And simplify announcements, I have it on default. This is basically announcements like dragon spawning, pentakills, double kills, things like that. If you don't want to hear a lot and if you don't want to see a lot on your screen as well, which is the big thing, like some people don't like the big massive text on their screen like double kill, pentakill. If you just want the simplified option and it just comes up on your text box on the left hand side, then you can go for that option as well. But of course with me, I like the big massive pentakills when I get a pentakill. I like seeing, maybe not if I'm against it, but if it's on my team, it's like, hey, my team got a pentakill. You see a nice big massive screen there. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Dual channel communication, 100% turn this on. It doesn't make too much of a difference if your phone doesn't have any mobile data, but if you do have mobile data and you have that difference between Wi-Fi and mobile data like 3G or 4G, what dual channel communication does is if your Wi-Fi goes down, the game quickly swaps to mobile data. If you have this off, then you can cause some problems in terms of servers trying to reconnect and trying to do other things as well. When you turn it on, it like I said, it basically enables that both your mobile data and your Wi-Fi will be there as backup. You might focus more on your mobile data in terms of your gameplay, but then if your mobile data goes down, it will swap to Wi-Fi and vice versa. So really important to keep this one on just in case, especially if you are traveling about and you accidentally connect to a Wi-Fi, like a hotspot, for example, that hotspot won't affect your game. You'll still be connected to what you are connected to and what you actually have data for or what you have connection for. Display minimap champion health bar is actually very important to turn on. It shows you how much health your team or the enemy has. If you have this off, everyone on the minimap will just have a green or a red circle. Nothing will change. If you turn this on, then enemy champions that are low on health will see the bar go down. Allied champions that are low on health will also see the bar go down. This is really good if you're playing champions like Soraka, for example, that have a global ultimate, Galio as well. So you'll be able to look at the minimap and you'll be able to see when champions are low on health, which means you can use Soraka's ultimate or Galio's ultimate with the global ultimate, or even things like Twisted Fate ultimate. If you see that a champion is low in either the top or the bot lane, you can use the ultimate to try and gank the lane. And you don't have to use and hold on the minimap and look to see up top lane, up bot lane, to see what their champion health bar is and how low they are. You can just look at the mini-map itself, which is a huge bonus, and it saves you a lot of time, especially when farming in the mid lane or just any lane in general. Also really good when you're playing the jungle to see what lane to gank and how low and how healthy some of your teammates and allies are. So yeah, definitely 100% turn on display minimap health bar. Now, to do with targeting and to do with more gameplay settings itself, I'll quickly show you my button layout to start things off. This is my button layout. This is all to do with personal preference. In my opinion, the big thing with control settings is making sure you have the right edge offset. This edge offset is basically how far the controls go from the right hand side of your screen to how far they go away or closer to it. As you can see, I always keep it around about here on like 61, 62, just because if I keep it too close to the edge of my phone, I'm bending my thumb really far to just use the attack button. So I like to keep it a little bit further away from the edge of the phone so your hands feel a lot more comfortable. The same with like your movement joystick here as well. Make sure that feels comfortable. Just have a little try of it, like go do this, see what feels comfortable. The same with the edge offset as well on the right hand side. That always feels great. Make sure your summon spells are pretty close to you as well as your boots enchant. Make sure these are really close to you. And that's pretty much it. There's nothing else really to talk about with these as well. Of course, your pings and that, make sure they're not hidden on your right hand side. There's a big massive circle tick button here, which I would kind of hide most of the time or put it over the mini map here. You don't really want this big, which this is more important later on, which I'll talk about a certain setting and what this tick gets used for. But I like to keep this very small and over the mini map, because when you use the abilities that requires you to use the tick, you don't actually need it, you know, need the mini map for it. So you can just give a little tick and you can use it, keep it closer to the left hand side of your screen so you can move over and use your thumb or use one of your index fingers. So that's everything to do with that. I won't save that to make sure that that doesn't get updated. Portrait lock, I always have this on fixed display. You have a difference between fixed display and priority display. The problem with priority display is it always changes depending on who's closest to you. So your number one is always going to be who's closest to you. Number two and number three is always going to be who's closer to you compared to the first one. Whereas fixed display is dependent on the enemy lanes. So if someone is top lane, they'll be number 5. Jungle will be number 3, mid lane will be number 1, number 2 and number 4 will be bot lane. I'm not too sure if that is the exact order, but that's just an example. Actually can't remember the last time I really used portrait lock. Most of the time I actually use portrait lock just to make sure that I can see when champions are coming towards me. So for example, if I'm trying to, you know, play in the mid lane here, I'm getting ganked by this Garen. So for example, the Garen is down here. If I walk up and I just see vision, like even though I barely see Garen on my screen because it's in the top right hand corner, I still have it on the fixed display. So even if you don't use this fixed display, which I personally don't really use portrait lock that much to you know, to target the right champions, I normally try and get a more precise control and target lock with dragging my attack button. But still, I would highly recommend to still put this on, because the big thing is that you'll be able to see who is close enough to you. So if I walk over here and say Garen is pretty much off my screen entirely, like I could barely see Garen. I'll be attacking pressing my attack button and I'll be looking in the middle of my screen. I won't be looking down at my attack button or where my thumb is, but I know that Garen's nearby because of the portrait lock. So even if you don't use it, highly recommend to turn portrait lock on just for that scenario in general and to see who's nearby and when you get vision of someone. General targeting priority, I always put this on low health absolute, just to make sure that the enemies that I'm targeting with my auto attacks are going to be the ones that are lower on health, which this is to do with trying to make sure that you focus the right target at the right time. Again, most of the time I drag my attack button. Sometimes I just press my attack button if I'm playing in a dual lane, for example, and most of the time it will put champions within range that will attack you. Whereas doing with the lowest percentage health is kind of a little bit difficult, because if you have a tank on the enemy team and an AD carry, if that tank has a lower percentage health than the AD carry, then you're going to be focused in the tank. But that tank still might have 3,000 health. The AD carry might have 1,000 health. But because that tank has so much HP and the percentage has been increased because of that, and when that percent HP goes lower, he's still very, very tanky and still very hard to kill, it can be a little bit difficult. So that's why I just go for absolute. Whoever has the lowest health, that's going to be the one. I never go for closest. Closest just never helps me at all. Sometimes you want to focus champions behind that are lower on health. Again, most of the time I use my dragon on the attack button to focus the right target, but if you want to just attack, you know, auto attack normally, just use a low health absolute. Force attack follow is very bad and honestly just completely ruins the way that you play the game. This basically, on tapping your ability, the game automatically follows that champion and it ruins your whole movement. You don't want to do this at all. You want to make sure that you are moving manually with your left joystick. Even though you're pressing the attack button, you don't want to follow and you don't want to go to places that you don't want to. Sometimes you might be tapping your auto attack button, but you might be running away with someone like a Jax, for example. But if you're pressing that auto attack button, it's messing with your joystick, which I'll show you how it messes with it now. So if I get Garen here and if I press my auto attack button, you can see it's going to follow. You see there, it follows and I can't, it's so difficult for my left joystick to try and cancel it. I have to pull away from it basically to make sure that I cancel it. So it's going to keep following time and time again. Whereas if I turn this off, then I could just still move around and I can auto attack. And when I get into range, my auto attacks will go off and my abilities will go off. But it won't follow. And so I can still move around freely and I can still do what I want. But it won't auto attack unless I'm in auto attack range, which is that huge massive white circle around me. So 100% recommend turn this off. It ruins with your movement and you never want to do it in general. Dash and move direction, you always want to have on. This is actually very helpful when you're jumping in with champions like Kassadin or Tryndamere, as you can see on screen, or any champions that have any dashing abilities in general. Sometimes when you're pressing on abilities or when you're aiming abilities, sometimes it can be a little bit off. So when I press the ability, it's always going to dash in the direction of my joystick. So if my joystick is going to left hand side and I press a mobility spell like Tryndamere, I'm going to dash to left. If I want to dash forward with Kassadin, I just press ultimate and I don't have to manually aim it. It actually saves a lot of time in team fights, making sure that you can just press the ability rather than manually aim an ability. Sometimes you want to manually aim the ability, especially someone like Kassadin, for example. Maybe you don't want to go too deep or you just want to do a little bit of a dash forward just to get on top of the target in general. But it's still very helpful just in general, making sure that you can close the gap a lot quicker and make it a lot quicker with these dashes in general in the game. Target loss system, you want to have this on all. You don't want to have it on no minions on structures. You don't want to have this on off. The target loss system is very, very important. It's basically what I do when I drag around my auto attacks. You can see I have it off at the moment. And when you have this target lock system off, it will only allow you to auto attack what's closest to you, or you just use the minion or the tower button. So if I walk up and I auto attack this Garen, I'm going to be auto attacking this Garen. But say, for example, I want to auto attack the tower, I have to press the tower button. Whereas if I change this to all, I can actually see what I can focus. So I can actually highlight the Garen and say I want to focus the Garen, or I can highlight the tower and I can focus the tower instead. Now the tower is highlighted yellow. Very important to make sure that you can, when you want to auto attack minions, you auto attack the right minion, auto attacking the right champion. Like I said, I always use this every single time I play the game. I always do this in a team fight, make sure I lock onto the right person, or it might be someone behind them, and make sure I focus that right person. And if you want to cancel this lock, all you have to do is press either the minion or the tower button. You can see there that little X icon. Just press that. Oh, sorry, I pressed the auto tap button instead of that button. Press that and it cancels. It's as simple as that to cancel the auto lock. So say, for example, there's a Garen here, but you want to auto attack like this dummy instead, but you've got your auto attacks focused on Garen. Just quickly hover over like that. It's that quick. You can see how quickly it is to switch between one target and another target. Or if you just want to focus minions, you just press the cancel button and you go back to auto attacking normally. Or you just press the minion button, you go back to auto attacking minions. In general, it will help you a lot with making sure you focus on the right target and you don't mess up any spells or auto attacks in general. So very important to keep that on all, and obviously make sure you don't put it on no minions or structures, because sometimes you want to focus the minions or structures. Ally buff targeting priority, you always want to put this on yourself. I always put this on myself, especially if I'm playing someone like Lulu or anyone like that, really. Lulu, Janna, anyone like that. If I want to heal or shield someone else, I will manually I will manually shield that target. I will manually heal that target. This is actually really important for laning phase, especially because in the laning phase, when you're playing someone like Lulu or even someone like, I don't know, someone like Thresh or someone like that, someone that gives you a shield value in the laning phase that you don't want to give over to your ally straight away. For example, you might want to walk up and start auto attacking some champions. With Lulu, you want to shield yourself, because if you get auto attack back, you'll be able to win the trade, and you'll be able to shield yourself, auto attack, win the trade, happy days. If you're focusing on allies instead, like low health percentage, low health absolute, then you're automatically shielding another champion like your dual lane partner, your AD carry, and they might not walk up and they might not want to do something. So always put this on yourself. Again, if you don't want to put it on yourself and if you don't want to play aggressive during laning phases, you can switch this to low health absolute. I always put it on myself. Again, if I'm manually shielding someone, if I want to shield someone, for this case, Lulu and Janna, I want to make sure that I shield targets that are important, give them the buffs like Ardent Sensor, Starflow Foam Water, Harmonic Echo, etc. Move stick type, I always just keep this on default. This just shows you the default route. Basically, where your thumb starts is where your thumb will move. So you can start your thumb on the top right hand corner of your left Joy-Con, and you still move left, right, up, down, and it doesn't change at all. You can change this to things like follow, so it follows you around. This, in my opinion, is just very distracting in general, and I don't really like it. Or you have locked. The problem with locked is that you're always locked to that one position. Wherever your Joy-Con is, you have to focus at that point, which I don't like at all. I don't think it's very useful, and sometimes you might misplace and you might put your thumb somewhere that you don't want to, and it will go in a completely different direction that you want to. I had to keep this on default, so wherever my thumb starts, that's where the Joy-Con starts, and I move right, left, up, down. So it doesn't matter if I do it up here, down here. It doesn't matter where I start my left Joy-Con. It will always start when my thumb taps on the screen, which is pretty damn helpful. Button aim sensitivity, I always try and keep this on the lowest possible. The problem with having really high button sensitivity is sometimes you might overhit your abilities, and sometimes you might miss your abilities. Having button sensitivity on something really low means that you have time to actually aim your abilities. This is how slow it is. I mean, you can still do it quite quickly, as you can see, but if I turn this up, it just goes to Narnia. Like, it's absolutely crazy. Like, look how quickly this is now. I'm not even moving it that fast on my thumb, but it's so damn quick of how you can see how fast. Look how much fast this is. I go from left to right at the same time, and it's just crazy. You can see how in general the circle becomes smaller on the right hand side where my ability is. I don't like it on high sensitivity. I like to keep it very low, normally on like 5%, or sometimes even lower than 5%. Actually, sometimes I might even put it on like 1%. But yeah, I like to have more accuracy with my abilities. I like to know where my abilities are going to be aimed. If I want to quickly cast an ability, I'll just tap the ability. I won't bother about trying to manually aim an ability that I want to quickly cast out with the button sensitivity. Again, button aim sensitivity is all about making sure that you're as accurate as possible. Action cancel method, you can either do this by holding the ability and going all the way up to the top with your X, or if you go outside of your circle, that will also cancel your ability. The alternative version is very risky. It's very weird and it's very risky, because sometimes you might go outside of the circle and you might accidentally cancel your ability when you want to use the ability. If I'm going to cancel the ability, I know that this button is always there in the top right hand corner. Doesn't matter if I'm using my first ability, my flash, my barrier, which obviously you can't do, but my auto attacks, anything. I know that there is a default button in the top right hand corner that I'm just used to. This will cancel any of my abilities. But sometimes what might happen is you might be aiming your ability really far forward, that you maybe go a little bit too far with your ability. Say for example this, like my thumb can go as far away to left hand side as possible, as far down, as far right, as basically I can move my thumb wherever I want to with this ability, and it will still cast. It will still cast at maximum range. But if I have this on the alternate version, if I use the ability and if it goes out of the radius of this circle that I have here, it's going to cancel the ability. So again, it's more about just being more reliable in terms of where you know where stuff is, things like canceling your abilities. Default, it's top right hand corner. It's always going to be top right hand corner, and it will save you a lot of time and also save you from missing or maybe not hitting any abilities at all, because you might accidentally cancel it. Joystick dead zone size. This is just the size of your dead zone, which is basically the circle around your ability. You can make this bigger. You can make this smaller. It just really depends on what you want. Personally, I like it quite small because I want to make sure that I try and, again, more to do with focusing and making sure that I try and focus and keep it as accurate as possible. Again, you can experience like increase the dead zone size if you're experiencing accidental aiming, decrease the size if you're orca targeting when you mean to aim. So making sure that you have the right dead zones so you know when to manually focus and when to automatically use the ability. Lock button centers, I don't really like this at all. It basically locks the button to the center of the ability. Again, it's kind of similar to your move stick type as well, with like the locked version of this, like you're only locked in one area. The exact same with the lock button centers. Sometimes I might use the ability on the far top left hand corner. Sometimes I might press the ability on the top right hand corner. Problem with locking it is that when I use it on the top right hand corner, it's going to always focus in the middle. So I might accidentally use the ability again in the wrong area or wrong spots. So that's why, again, I keep the locked versions of the abilities off. So I know that when I press on the ability, it will always start in the middle. Doesn't matter where I tap the ability, where I use the ability, or where I use the joystick, it will always start in the middle. Again, all about consistency, making sure you're accurate. That's just my button layout, nothing important about that. Ping size, always like to keep 110% just to make sure they are big enough to be able to see stuff. Manual aim time limit. Now, this is a new setting that has come into this patch. So some of you might be seeing with Victor's third ability at the moment. As you can see with Victor's third ability, I have this tick button on my top left-hand corner, which is the tick button I was talking about before. Basically, Riot added in a new setting, which is called a manual aim time limit. And what this does is it basically, when you're using abilities like Rumble's ultimate or Victor's third ability, it has two parts. You have the first part of when the ability is going to start, and you have the second part of where the ability is going to be aimed. What this setting does is it allows you to use the second part of the ability without pressing the tick button. So you use the third ability, you hold it in the same place. Again, my left hand is here. I'll cancel the ability again. I'm not going to press the tick button at all. I move it, I hold it, and look at that. It's already in the second part of the ability. I can already aim it where I want to. This is so important when you're playing Victor or Rumble, especially when you're trying to manually aim your third ability and also Rumble's ultimate. If you move it, hold it for half a second, you can see it will automatically go in the second phase. Sometimes when you're pushing with Victor, when you're pushing minions, sometimes your third ability, I forgot what the ability is called. Is it called Missile Barrage? Actually, what? Hex-Tech Ray. I don't know where Missile Barrage came from. When you're using your third ability, Hex-Tech Ray, sometimes it might go into a completely different direction that you want to. If you want to manually focus on like 3 minions that are in a row, so for example, there's 3 minions that are in a line like this, sometimes it might mess things up. You can see here, like when I manually cast the ability, sometimes it might focus on the champion. Sometimes it might focus on something else. If you want to manually focus on these minions, then boom, I can just do this. And all of these are going to be focused in the same time. You can see I can walk over here. I can manually aim. I can walk to the left-hand side, lock the ability, and manually aim. It's so important to do this on, like I said, Victor and Rumble, just to make sure that you are very accurate with your ability. And again, if I want that quick burst of damage, I'll just tap the ability and it will always focus on the champion or the minions that's closest to me, or dragon or anything like that. But again, this is really important for when you want to clear minions or you want to manually cast the ability. But what does this setting mean though? Like, you have a bunch of percentages. What does this mean? This is all about how much time you want when holding the ability. Again, if you do this all the way down to 0%, this ability will turn off. So even if you hold this ability in place for 20 minutes, it won't go into the second phase. That means you always have to press your tick button, which again, it can be very difficult unless you're very used to using your index finger by pressing the tick button. You have to press the tick button and then go into the second phase. The lower time you have, so the lower percentage you have, the lower time it takes before it gets into the second phase. So if I put this all the way up 100%, it's going to take me longer to hold it in place to go into the second phase. If I put this down at like 20%, if I hold the ability in place, you can see much quicker. So the higher percentage means the more time you need when you're holding the ability to go into the second phase. I like to have this on very, very low. As I mentioned, if I want this ability for quick burst damage, if I want to get the ability out as soon as possible, I'm not manually aiming the ability. I'm just tapping the ability, and that's the quickest way you want to use abilities. But when I manually aim my third ability or manually aim Rumble's ultimate, I always want to go into the second phase as quick as possible. I want to quickly move into the spot I want to, go into the second phase and try and use this ability as quick as possible. I either push waves, get that huge massive team fight ultimate with Rumble. So I'd highly recommend you to put this on as low percentage as possible. I always like to keep it on roughly 20%. Aim panning, very important again to keep this on. It will give you so much more vision in general with Lux, or just any champions in general that have these long range spells. Jinx ultimate, Draven ultimate, anyone that has these long extended spells, the camera panning on the left hand side, as you can see, just looks so much better. You can see so much in front of you. You can see if any enemy champions are low in front of you. You can see if you're in danger from in front of you. Most of the time, you don't actually need to look in front of you. Just in general, the aim panning on the left-hand side will give you a lot more field of vision and give you, again, a lot more accuracy. So I always have this setting on. Camera height, you always want this on the highest. Camera being on medium, it just doesn't make sense. Like, you want it on high just to give you that extra field of view so you can zoom out a little bit more. Medium means you're a lot more zoomed in. You're not going to see as much of the map, so you always want this on high. Ability mini cam map. This is a little camera next to your mini map. This can be used for things like Twisted Fate ultimate, Lux's E, for example. You can see it when you move out of vision, or just any ability in general. If you move it out of vision, I'm pretty sure it works with this as well. No, it doesn't work with this. Oh, because you always have vision anyway of it. Basically, basically abilities that you might lose vision of and you don't know where the ability is. It will show you on the top right hand corner next to where your mini map is. If you go into the custom button layout, it will be this box here. This box will show you where the abilities go in. Or maybe it's a ability like Galio ultimate. You want to know where you're landing. You can look at the screen next to the mini map just so you know where you're landing and where you're going to. So that's pretty important, just to make sure that you know what that is. And again, it's pretty useful. I would never really turn this off. It's always very useful just to know where you're going to, like a Twisted Fate ultimate, where you're going to and where your abilities are landing. Again, button aim sensitivity, button camera pan sensitivity, the exact same thing. Your little panning that you can do with your right thumb on your right hand side. Again, I like to have it low so I don't need to, so I have more accuracy with where I'm aiming with my camera, so I can move around and see what's around me. I don't want this camera pan sensitivity being on a crit. Like, look at that. Look how high it gets. I move my thumb a little bit like I did before, and it goes on the other side of the map. You do not want this on a very high setting. Even something like 60% is probably too high. Yeah, I mean, I move my thumb a little bit. I mean, I'm not even taking my thumb off the screen. I'm just wiggling it from left to right, and you can see how much it's moving. I would say that's a good way to actually look at this. Is most of the time you won't be leaving your thumb out of your finger when you're moving. You won't be lifting your thumb off your phone when you're using your camera pan. So as long as your camera pan can cover most of your lane, as you can see here, it covers most of my lane, it covers the river, it covers the tower and everything else. I don't need to look at anything else. And also there you can see the little camera there next to the mini map to see where Victor is. So if you do look somewhere else on the map, you can see where your champion is and where you're moving. But most of the time I'm not going to use this camera pan for anything other than what's in my close proximity. That's what the mini map's for. If you want to look at further proximity, you can hold on the mini map, and I can look at top lane, hold on the mini map. I can look at bot lane by holding onto the mini map. So this camera pan is only for things in close proximity to you. So you want to make sure it's a low sensitivity so you can see what's around you, and again have more accuracy just when aiming your things. Semi-lock camera, I don't really use this too much. I probably should use it a lot more. It is a very, very useful tool. Again, I'm just not used to using my index fingers. I'm old and I haven't played mobile games for all my life. You know, kids that have been playing mobile games for all their lives, they play with like this claw with 2 index fingers, 2 thumbs. Bit too much for me. But the little semi-lock camera is this little eye in the top right hand corner here. And what it does is it moves your camera and it locks your camera in a position where you want it to. So it's actually really good. Like this, for example, if I want more vision of the mid lane, if I want to know where my mid lane champion is, where I'm aiming my abilities, the edge of my Victor's ability, or how far my W or any of my other abilities are going to be landing, this is really good. And if you want to reset the semi-lock camera, you just press it and it locks back into the middle. You can look what's behind you or to the side of you, which most of the time you don't look behind you, but you can always just see what's in front of you and what's to the side of you. Me personally, I never use it. I always like to just keep my champion in the middle, so it's my main priority. I always look at the middle of my phone just to make sure I know how much health I'm on, how low I am, if I'm in any danger. If I move this over here, then suddenly the center of my phone doesn't become myself, so I'm not focusing on my health bar, I'm focusing on someone else. So I don't use it too much. I can see why people do use it though, to get a lot more vision during the laning phases. It's a little bit more difficult in a fight because if you're just using your thumb, you have to move your thumb from the attack button up to the semi-lock camera, which means you can't use your abilities. But if you're used to using your index finger and auto-attacking at the same time, like you can do something like this. Again, it's something I'm not used to, but a lot of people are. But I keep it there anyway, just for aesthetics, really. Just in case I do need to use it every once in a while. Death and spectate panning. This is just completely up to you. It basically just means if it's inverted or natural, it doesn't really matter. Utilities, mini-map auto-pathing. A lot of people actually don't know what this setting means. And what it allows you to do, it allows you to move by not moving your joystick. So say, for example, you're just coming from outer base. Say, for example, we're going back to base. We're going to buy an item. Say we buy our boots and our Luden's Echo. And I want to read Twitch chat as I'm walking back to lane. It's very difficult for me to move my left joystick and, you know, I might crash into this Nexus tower, or I might crash into the wall and I might walk into a certain direction I don't want to go into. It can be a little bit difficult, but it also can be things like checking the scoreboard. It's a great time to look at your scoreboard or look at the shop and make sure that you're, you know, buying the right item, pre-ordering the right item, or ping it so then your team knows what you're getting. It allows you to do that with minimap auto payment. So all you do is you tap once on the minimap, boom, and it walks you there. I have no hands on my phone. It allows me to walk to lane without me touching my left joystick. And again, as I mentioned, it's so useful when you want to do things like check the scoreboard, see what the gold leads are looking like, look at the shop, see what items I want to buy, ping what items I want to buy, pre-order the next item that I want so I know how much gold I need to get the item. So many things that you're able to do when you're tapping on the minimap. Maybe look at top lane, look at bot lane. You can see there, I'm still moving. The Victor's still moving. It is so useful. Sometimes it won't have the best pathing of where you want to go, but as long as you're just using this to get from base to your lane, it's completely fine. Just make sure that you don't tap too far that you walk into enemy towers or somewhere that you don't want to basically go to. As long as you use this to get from base back to your lane, very helpful. And again, it gives you more time to mentally reset and look at the map and look at the scenario of the game and what you need to do to try and win that game. Very helpful. Quick cast auto attacks is all about your empowered auto attacks. So things like Jack's W, for example, your empowered auto attack afterwards, making sure that it focuses the right target and also making sure that it automatically follows up with an auto attack when you're using this ability. So you get the auto attacks off as quick as possible. You always want to make sure this setting is on. Level up suggestions, you don't need this on unless you're very new to the game. Most people know how to manually level up their abilities anyway, so it's not very helpful. Again, the same with auto level up, not very helpful because I know what abilities I'm leveling up and I don't need to automatically do it because I can press it myself. Warning aim assist, I actually don't really like. I don't like this setting at all. It basically tries to focus where your wards are going to be going. Say, for example, if I want to put this ward in like a bush or something, it will always try and focus on what bush I'm trying to go towards, and it will always try and lock myself onto bushes or different places that I don't actually want to put my ward in. And especially when you're tapping the ability as well, it will put it in bushes like this. You can see it will always put it in nearby bushes. I always turn this off because I always like to be as accurate as possible with my wards. If I want to put a ward just on the corner of this wall, I can. If I want to put this not inside the bush but on this side of the wall, so I can see the raptors, I can put it there. Again, if I tap the ability, you know, it will just mess it all up. And yeah, I just don't really like the ward aim assist. I don't think it's very helpful at all. Just making sure that you're more accurate with your wards, super important. So I always have that off. Ping magnifier, follow your fingers or fixed. Most of the time I have it on fixed just to make sure that I'm fixed on where I actually want to go to. If I put it on follow your finger, it will go into like some really weird scenario where you have this magnifying glass. I don't really like it personally. I think it's just very distracting when you have this magnifying glass on the left hand side. As long as it's fixed and as long as I know where I'm aiming it, again, the magnifying glass is in top left hand corner instead. I can just look at the top left hand corner, see if I'm pinging Baron, and I can ping away from Baron or away from Elder, or attack Baron, attack Elder. I know roughly how far I need to move my thumb to be able to manually aim everything. Again, if you can do it on follow your finger and you can do it, I ping too much. But you can do it on follow your finger just to get more accurate pings. To be fair, you know, you don't need that much accuracy with pings, just making sure that you have that little bit of an edge, and knowing where you're aiming your pings is normally okay. Like, as long as you have a rough idea where your pings are going, that's totally fine. Cast on button press. This makes your casting of your abilities much quicker. Instead of it being on when your finger releases or when your thumb releases from the ability, instead it casts when your thumb presses the ability, which might not seem like a big difference, but the difference between using the ability when you press down on your phone and when you release on your phone actually makes such a big difference. It means you can quickly use your combos a lot quicker. You don't have to press the ability, lift your finger, press the other ability, and by the time you lift your finger, you want to press another ability already. But because the game is still processing you using the other ability because you're lifting your finger, then it means your other ability doesn't actually cast sometimes. So sometimes it can actually mess a few things up. So in general, cast on button press, 100% you want to go for that. Button transparency, I always make sure I have this on the maximum. I don't like it when my button transparency is very, very low. You can't really see the buttons as much. To be fair, it's actually not that bad. I feel like they changed it because it definitely wasn't this bad before. I like the button transparency on the maximum just so I know where my buttons are, and I have a lot more going on and I can see a lot more about where I'm using my buttons, and also how many levels I have in each of my abilities to know how powerful I am. Flash combos, I feel like most of the time this actually ruins combos more than actually helps you. I actually have this off most of the time. Sometimes if you're jumping in with like Jarvan Ultimate, for example, or you can see here like Gragas Body Slam, Galio's Justice Punch, Vice Volt Breaker. Sometimes when I'm engaging and when I'm using my flag and drag forward, for example, sometimes I want to instantly flash away. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I've gone a bit too far and I want to instantly flash away. If you do this, then it's actually going to flash you forward. And sometimes it makes you flash into places that you don't want to. This is especially really annoying when there's loads of enemies nearby, because it will always focus which one is closest to you, for example, and it will always focus like the bigger bunch of them all. Which, say for example, if I have two target dummies on the left hand side and one on this side, if I want to focus this one target dummy on the right hand side and say I want to like Q flash over here, it will try and flash me over here as well. Like, it's basically a way to make the game easier, but it actually doesn't. It just makes it more annoying than anything else. So I always have flash combo off. It can be pretty nice, to be fair, if you really want this. You can put it on if you maybe don't understand some of these champions and you want more combo opportunities. But like I said, I would rather have more accuracy and know what I'm doing with my flash and my abilities, rather than the game deciding for me where I'm going to flash. Again, I might want to flash in a certain direction when I use my flag and drag, or when I use my Galio's Justice Punch, for example. Maybe I want to flash on the back line, maybe I want to do something else. And sometimes, again, the game automatically does it for you, and sometimes it can flash into different areas, which it's happened to me very many times, and it is very, very annoying. Item recommendation requests, I actually turned this off recently, but this basically means that you can recommend items to your team, or teammates can recommend you items. I don't really like people recommending me items, because that doesn't really make sense since I know everything about builds. But if you want to recommend, say for example, some anti-heal, like Mortal Reminder or Morellonomicon, you want to recommend Randuin's Omen because the enemy team has a lot of critical strike chance, you can do that and then go into your shop. And then when you click on a item, in the top right corner, you can't see it because I'm in practice mode, but in the top right corner, you'll have a little tick icon or a little icon next to it. If you click on that, you can click on a champion that you want to recommend it to and click OK. And then that person can either accept or reject the item, which there's a little icon that happens just above the ward. Just above the ward icon. You click on that and you just press accept or reject. Which most of the time I have it off, but sometimes I turn it on just in case I want to do anything. Recall with pre-ordered items. I don't really see the point of this personally. Every single time that I tap my items, I tap the items because I want to know how much gold I need. Sorry, not how much gold I need because it actually tells you, but I want to let my team know how much gold I need or whether I can buy an item or not. If I need to go back to base, I'll press the recall button. I don't need to tap a pre-ordered item to be able to do it. No, that is not going to happen. Again, if I tap on an item, I want to tap and say that. I want to say my Archangel is ready to build. I want to go back to base and I want to build this item. It's the only reason you would ever tap on items. Say, for example, things like, you know, if I want to go back to base, say, for example, I've completed Bloodthirster as an AD carry. I will ping this item. And what this does, it warns my team or it warns my support like, okay, my AD carry or one of my champions on my team has a very big power spike in base. I shouldn't be engaging. I shouldn't be going forward. I should wait until my teammate recalls, comes back to the base, comes back to the map, and then he's going to be a lot more stronger. If I'm tapping items to try and recall instead, I'm not really helping my team at all. Like, I might be recalling to base. My team might be thinking, hey, why are you recalling to base? What's the point of recalling to base? But they don't know that I have an item if I don't ping it. And if I ping it, then people will understand that, oh, this guy's an item in base. I shouldn't play as aggressive. Again, that's a very important tip to give to you in general, just not to do with settings. Ward alerts. This will actually be automatically off. And this is so important to turn on. You do not understand how important this is, like this setting is. When nearby enemies are spotted on a ward, you hear a ping in your ear. So if someone walks over your ward, say for example there is a target dummy in here, I'll quickly remove all these other target dummies for now. Say for example there is a target dummy in here, and say you have a ward in this bush. If you have a ward in this bush, it will ping. You hear a noise in your ear, and you have that little glow effect on the mini map, which you'll see in a second. I think it'll ping in the next few seconds. It will ping, you will hear it, and then you'll be able to see where nearby junglers are. It's such an important setting to turn on. And again, it gives you the vision that you need when enemies are spotted. If I put a ward over this wall, it will ping that the Garen's there. And that ping will give you that freak reaction sort of thing, like, oh shit, someone's nearby, or oh shit, someone's been spotted on vision. It might not be in your lane, as you can see there you go, it pings every few seconds. It might not be someone from your lane, but it still in general gives you that sense of, I need to be careful, someone might be nearby. If I look at the mini map and I realize that it's mid or top lane, cool, I'm completely fine. But it gives you that extra edge of being wary of where your enemy champions are, because sometimes you can very easily lose track by killing minions, killing monsters in your jungle, and you can lose track of where enemy champions are, which is why looking at the minimap in general is very important. But this extra ping just gives you another reason to look at the minimap and to see where enemy champions are on the map. And that ward's going to be spotted. That ward is going to constantly be spotting. Actually, if I walk over here, I should be fine. So yeah, ward alerts, very important. Oh, there's a ward alert happening over here now as well. So yeah, ward alerts, the most important setting, I think, to turn on, because like I said, automatically this setting will be turned off. And then in terms of sound, I actually have this all off because I don't want you to hear audio out of your ears all of the time. But ping and broadcast volume, I normally have on very high because you want to hear the pings and you want to hear everything around you. Music I like to have on, I normally have it low. If I have it too loud, the music's just going to be too distracting. I like to have a little bit of music on when I'm playing, but not too high, so I like to keep it on a little bit low. And champion voiceovers, I'm not really too fussed about, so I normally put it on 50%. Announce pings as well, so when you send a ping, it will play a descriptive voice line. Say for example, if I say, attack Baron. There you go, attack Baron, attack Elder Dragon, retreat from this champion. If you turn this off, then it will just ping you. It will just ping it, and you have to actually look at the pings. Again, using sound to your advantage, always turn this off. If someone on my team is saying retreat from dragon, I know that I'm not going to go towards the dragon. Again, I don't need to visually look. I can focus on myself still. But if someone pings retreat from Baron, I'm like, okay, there might be someone at Baron, or something's happening over at Baron, or someone pings enemy missing. For example, if I'm pinging like Garen, oh wait, no, I need to ping it like this. If I go this, enemy missing, there's a voice line that happens that says enemy missing. So I know that if I'm in my lane and if the mid lane is missing, if you ping danger and if you hover over the champion that's missing, everyone on the map will know now that your mid laner is missing. Your enemy mid laner is missing. So they will know now to be in danger. So again, using these little things to your advantage. And then this is just to do with your more voice lines, which you don't really need to be able to do. You can just keep on and it will just be completely fine. Cool. That's pretty much everything with the settings. Again, very important settings to turn on. Walled alerts, turn that on. Make sure you have the manual aim time limit also on a very low %, so you'll be able to see that. Make sure your field of view is on a low brightness, so you'll be able to see a lot more on the map and know where field of vision is and where field of vision isn't. Or fog of war, I should say, is and where it isn't. I'm going to quickly talk you through my graphic settings now, just so you can see the graphic settings when we go into the menus. But that's pretty much it in terms of the gameplay settings. Everything in these settings in this menu pretty much is the same as what we covered in the game itself, so we don't actually need to cover too much. Again, the big thing I just wanted to show you is my graphic settings. Now, I could easily play the game on 60 FPS with this phone I use and play on super high graphics. I can make the game look the best possible. But is that the best for me? Is that the best for the gameplay that I want and how smooth the game is? No, of course it's not. I want to make sure I play on 120 FPS and I play on the highest frame rate possible. This will make the game feel smoother, look smoother, and also just increase your gameplay and make your gameplay a lot better. The higher the FPS, the better the gameplay will be. Again, I can't use super high. I can't use high resolution, but that doesn't bother me. I'm not bothered by how the game looks. I'm bothered about my performance. I would much rather prioritize the performance rather than the, how the game looks. Again, your phone might be able to only do 60 FPS. You might have the option to go high and super high, but maybe your phone isn't capable enough. So just put it on low. Actually, no, I wouldn't recommend to put low resolution because the game looks awful on low resolution. I would at least put on medium resolution. Graphics quality doesn't matter at all. Effects quality, you can have on medium or low. That doesn't matter. Again, your post-processing, you can turn it off because that just ruins with your 3D models that you don't need to worry about. Some phones will look like this. I have a very high-end Red Magic phone, so I'm able to play on 120 FPS and still play on high medium, and my phone doesn't overheat that much. But again, your phone might not be able to do that, so making sure that you have the highest FPS possible but also the lowest graphics possible so your phone doesn't overheat is very important. You have things here like dynamic resolution as well, which I always have off. What this does is it automatically changes your graphic settings if your phone is overheating, which can be good on very low-end devices. So if you do want to play on high graphic settings and high resolution, if the phone can't handle it, if it's overheating, the dynamic resolution will lower the graphic settings, but it will lower it in the middle of the game, which again might mess with your mind a little bit because some things might look crisp and some things might not look so crisp. Again, it just depends on your phone and what you're looking at in general. Interface animations is just, you're switching between different events and whatever. So again, that doesn't really matter too much. And that is pretty much everything. I don't think there's anything else that I have missed in terms of any other settings or anything important. Whoops, I accidentally did that by accident. Yeah, everything in general has been covered. General settings, these are things just like, display match results and allow spectators, which, chat filter, all that sort of stuff, which doesn't matter too much. Again, the sound is all here just to make sure that you're all ready to go there. Other is things like microphone, close friend notifications, clear up your cache, which sometimes you might want to do, by the way. This clear game cache might be very helpful if you're struggling with your game. Make sure you do clean up cache and also make sure you repair your game. That can also be super important. And then you just have download controls. We're already talking about all of this. There's nothing else here that is anything extra. And then you have your block list and you have your payback. So that is everything. I've gone through every single setting in this game. And again, some of your settings that you have in your game will be automatically turned off. So you want to go into your settings, make sure you copy the same settings or very similar settings to mine. Give it a try and let me know what you think. Appreciate you all tuning into the video. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.